Turning on the microphone really helps with recording. Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I have been anticipating doing this video for such a long time and I'm so excited to share this with you guys. I'm going to be sharing today the 25 books that I want to read in 2025. Now there's no particular rhyme or reason for why I chose these books other than I just haven't gotten to them yet and it's a book that I really want to read. For the most part, I did try to prioritize books that were already on my physical TBR, though there are some new releases and some books that I do not own that I wanted to read bad enough that I included it on this list anyway. But for the most part, I already own the books and they've already been on my TBR at least for a month or so. These are some of my favorite videos to watch and I'm so excited to be sharing with you guys the books that I want to read in 2025. So the first book on my list is a book that I've been really meaning to get to for a while and I honestly thought that I would get to it in 2024. And that book is Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis. I've heard such amazing things about this book. It's a literary fiction book. It's about Elizabeth Zott and she's a chemist, but since she is a female chemist in the mid-1900s, she does not have the same job opportunities as some of her male colleagues. And because of that, she is kind of forced to take on this job to be a TV show host for this cooking show. And she's very reluctant about it, but she has to provide for her family. She's a single mother and it kind of goes through her story. I personally think that sounds like such an interesting premise. And I've heard such amazing things about this book, and so I definitely want to prioritize this book in the coming year. The second book on my list is also one that I thought that I would get to this year, but I didn't quite make it. And that book is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I have yet to read a Taylor Jenkins Reid's books, but I have heard absolutely amazing things about her books. Are you licking the book? Can you not? My dog is seriously trying to sabotage this video right now. Anyway, this one out of all the other books that have been super popular over the past couple years just seems like it has a more interesting premise to me. Come here, come lay down. The summary of this one goes, reclusive Hollywood icon Evelyn Hugo is finally ready to tell the truth about her glamorous and scandalous life. But when she chooses unknown magazine reporter Monique Grant to write her story, no one is more astounded than Monique herself. Determined to use this opportunity to jumpstart her career, Monique listens in fascination, from making her way to Los Angeles in the 1950s to leaving show business in the 80s, and of course, the seven husbands along the way. Evelyn unspools a tale of ruthless ambition, unexpected friendship, and a great forbidden love. But as Evelyn's story nears its conclusion, it becomes clear that her life intersects with Monique's own in tragic and irreversible ways. It just seems like a really cool concept, and I've heard that Taylor Jenkins Reid is just a fantastic writer, and so that's why this one is on this list. The third book on my list is a book that I do not own, but it's one that I'm very excited to read, and that is The Inheritance Game by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the first book in the Inheritance Game trilogy, and honestly, I have been looking forward to reading this series for such a long time. One of the main reasons why I honestly haven't started it yet is that I haven't found any of the books at secondhand shops, which is one of the main ways that I buy my books. But I know that at least the first book is on Kindle Unlimited, so I will very happily start with that book on my Kindle and see if I like it, and then I will continue the series from there. I've just heard great things about this series, that it's just fun and fast paced and that the characters are amazing. So that is a series that I'm definitely excited to get into this year, specifically the first book, The Inheritance Games. The next book on my list is a classic, and that is Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. I honestly don't know very much about this book besides the fact that it's a classic, and I think it's a dystopian, if I'm not mistaken. And I think it's about a fireman, and part of his job is to burn books, and that books are illegal. So I am super excited to read this book, and it's not very long. So that's a bonus. As I do with most classics, I'll probably listen to it on audiobook. For me, I tend to get a lot more out of classic books when they are an audiobook rather than having to read them on the page. I don't know why that is, but I definitely soak them in better and enjoy the story more when it's an audiobook. So I will probably do that. And I also curated a list. I think it's from Goodreads, but it's the 100 books that everyone should read before they die. And this is one of the books on that list. Most of them are classics, but there are also some more modern books on there as well, such as Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and also Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows is on there as well. The Hunger Games, books that have proved to be very important to culture. So it'll be nice to say that I've read that one and get one more book off that list. This next book is a nonfiction book. I don't have very many nonfiction books on this list, but this is probably the one that I'm most excited about reading, and that is Dream Chasing by Bob Wise. This book just came out, I think, in like September or October of 2024. This is a book written by Bob Wise about his 4 decades that he spent working at Imagineering at the Walt Disney Company. And he just recently retired. I think he might have just retired like last year or maybe end of 2023. So I'm super, super excited to read this book. The next book on the list I also do not own, and it is called There by Tommy Orange. It's a novel about several different Native communities and the story of all of them traveling to a very specific powwow and what happens along the way and how all these groups are interconnected in ways that they don't even realize. And honestly, that's all I know about the book. I don't know too much about it. I just thought that it looked interesting and I've seen it around for a while. And so I put it on my list. The next book on my list I actually just recently got at a bookstore, and that is Just Last Night by Vari McFarlane. This book is marketed as a romance book, but from what I've heard from people who have read it, it reads a little bit more literary/women's fiction with a romantic subplot line or a romantic plot line more at the end instead of all the way through, and that it definitely doesn't read like a conventional romance. And those are some of the comments that really interested me in reading this book. I'm not a huge conventional romance person. I have a few specific authors that I really enjoy, but for the most part, it's kind of limited. The summary of this one is, Eve, Justin, Susie, and Ed have been friends since they were teenagers. Now, in their 30s, the four are as close as ever. Thursday night bar trivia is sacred, and Eve is still secretly in love with Ed. Maybe she could have moved on by now, but she can't stop thinking about what could have been, and she knows Ed thinks about it too. But then, in an instant, their lives are changed forever. In the aftermath, Eve's world is upended. The stunning secrets are revealed, and she begins to wonder if she really knew her friends as well as she thought. And when someone from the past comes back into her life, Eve's future veers in a surprising new direction. They say every love story starts with a single moment. What if it was just last night? So that is that one. Then there's Lovely War by Julie Berry. But this was one of the books that absolutely blew up this year. And from what I've heard, it sounds really intriguing. This book is about World War I, but it is told from the perspective of Aphrodite, who is on trial for cheating on her husband. And she tells stories of love and loving acts throughout World War I and uses it as justification as to why she cheated on her husband. And I've heard such good things about this book, so that is why it ended up on this list. The next book I know is a book that people are very much in love with, and that is Beach Read by Emily Henry. I had planned on making this the first Emily Henry book that I ever read, but I just recently decided to listen to the audiobook of Funny Story, and I absolutely loved that book. I ate it up. I thought it was so good. I was very surprised on how much I loved her writing style, her sense of humor, and her character development. And so I am now even more excited than I already was to go into her older books, especially Beach Read, because I know it is so beloved. I know that her writing style in this one is a little bit different than in Funny Story, but nevertheless, I am still excited to get into it. Here we are again. I know that I already told you guys I was reading this book soon. It's just not going to go away. It's going to be on my list of priority books until I get it read, because I know that it's that good. So you guys have already seen me attempt to start this book and then backtrack and decide that I want to read the Shadow and Bone series first. I currently am reading the second book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy, Siege and Storm. I'm determined to read this book this year. So guess who's going to prioritize reading the Shadow and Bone trilogy so she can get to Six of Crows? I'm going to do it. And I'm probably going to love it. And I've heard that it's amazing. And the found family and the dual point of view is all amazing. And I say all those things, but in my heart, I actually don't have super high expectations for this book because I'm not loving the Shadow and Bone trilogy. So I'm hoping that this will be good, but I'm not counting on it because I'm not loving the Shadow and Bone trilogy. But I'm not going to give up, and I'm definitely going to read it. Then we have Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. I still have not read a Lynn Painter book, and that honestly surprises me because this book was on my 24 books to read in 2024, and I'm definitely not going to get to it this year. So I just moved it on over to my 25 books to read in 2025 list. I'm going to read it. It's gonna happen this year. It's going to happen. This is a young adult romance. about a girl. She's in high school and she's in love with, I think, her neighbor. Anyway, she's in love. She's trying to get the boy that she really likes to fall in love with her. And so she ensues the help of her frenemy to help her make that other person jealous and to fall in love with her. And she is completely obsessed with rom-coms, which is why it's called Better Than the Movies. And it has like all these like kind of rom-com-y moments on it. So it's supposed to be just like really fun and really cute. And from what I understand, there's absolutely no spice in it. So I'm looking forward to that as well, because skipping of a spice can get really annoying if there's a lot of it. So it's not going to get moved to the 2026 list. I'm going to finish it this year. Then we have another nonfiction book on the list, and it is called Metaphors We Live by George Lakoff and Mark Johnson. And this book is exactly what it sounds like. It is a book about metaphors and how it affects our language and our brain. And that may sound really boring to some people, but I have been so excited to read this book for such a long time. And I am such a huge language nerd that this sounds so intriguing to me, and I absolutely cannot wait to read it. And it's not super long either, which is nice. Oh yeah, it's like under 300 pages, so hopefully it won't take that long either. There's so many metaphors in our language that we don't even realize that we use, and we don't even realize are metaphors because we're so used to them. Just sounds so intriguing to me. And so I'm so excited to learn about it. The next book is Surprised by Joy by C.S. Lewis. I believe this is the book about his testimony, or kind of like a memoir type situation. I'm not 100% sure which one it is, but it's one of my goals to read a C.S. Lewis book every single year. And so this is the book that I'm planning on reading in 2024, because I really want to learn more about C.S. Lewis himself and who he was and what made him who he was and why he thought the way he did. So hopefully this book is what I think it will be. Then I have another memoir that I'm going to be reading, and that is Dolly by Dolly Parton. This is the memoir that she published herself back in, let's see, when did she do this? 1994. And I know like bits and pieces about Dolly's life, but it will be really cool to hear about her life and how she became the person that she is today through her own eyes. I'm excited about this one. And then I'm going to be continuing a series that I have already started, and that is Iron Gold by Pierce Brown. This is the fourth book in the Red Rising saga. The first three books are Red Rising, Golden Sun, and Morning Star, and those three together are a complete trilogy. But if you want to continue on with the story, there are three more books, and there's going to be a book after that continue the series. And I think the one that is going to be coming out maybe next year, and it's going to complete everything. So this is the fourth book in that series. And so far, the series is just okay to me, but I like it enough that I want to continue on with the story. And I want to be able to talk about the story with the people in my life that are reading this series or have read this series and they really like it. So I want to be able to continue in those conversations. So that's why I am going to be prioritizing reading the next book this year. Then I have a short little nonfiction book called He Speaks in Silence. This is a Christian nonfiction book. This is about a woman who had everything that she thought that she wanted in life, and she was still disappointed in what she had in life so far. And so she asked God to give her more, and he took her through lots of trials. And then through some of those things, she ended up going deaf as an adult. It goes through the grief of losing the life that she lost and the trials that she had to go through, and also her faith journey as she rediscovers what it means to hear from God. Then we have another classic, and that is Gone with the Wind. This is a chunky little book. I'm so excited to start this book. This is one of those books that people who don't really like classics can read it, and they usually end up liking the story. But it's supposedly one of the greatest romances of all time. And again, I'll probably listen to this on audiobook. Me and classics just vibe much better when it's on audiobook. And then I have a start of another fantasy series, which I'm so excited about, and that is Dance of Thieves. This is the first book in the Dance of Thieves duology. The next one is Vow of Thieves, and I've just heard amazing things about this book. I honestly have no idea what it's about. I think it has trials of some kind. It doesn't have trials, just kidding. I have no idea what this book's about. The back just says, a formidable outlaw family that claims to be the first among nations, a son destined to lead thrust suddenly into power, three fierce young women of the Rattan, the Queen's premier guard, a legendary street thief leading a mission determined to prove herself, a dark secret that is a threat to an entire continent. When outlaw leader meets reformed thief, A cat and mouse game of false moves ensues, bringing them intimately together in a battle that may cost them their lives and their hearts. And yeah, reading the back of that book, I still honestly have no idea what it's about, but the cover is absolutely gorgeous and I've heard amazing things, and it's a fantasy. You really don't have to tell me more than that for me to want to read it. The next couple books on this list I don't own. I don't even know the authors' names of most of these books, but I'm going to tell you the titles and I will put them up on the screen so you can see the cover of the book and see the author's name as well. The first one is This Is How You Lose the Time War. There is a war literally on different sides of time. There's two people who are on opposing sides of this time war that are sending each other letters through time. And it's one of those things where they're communicating with each other, but their timelines will never meet. They'll never actually have a chance to meet one another. It just sounds so interesting. Anything that has to do with time in a book just sounds so intriguing to me. Like if it's about time in any sort of way, I'm probably in. I think that it's so intriguing and I absolutely love it usually. So I'm super excited about that one. And then the next book is called The Will of the Many. This is a fantasy book that I think it came out this year, and it was also one of the best audiobooks of 2024. So I recently got the audiobook so I could listen to it. And I don't honestly know that much about the book, except it's about someone who is in this kingdom and they somehow find out some sort of secrets about the kingdom and the story that ensues from them knowing those secrets. Then I have a thriller on this list, and it is The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. It's the same guy who wrote The Silent Patient, which I read in, I think, October, and I really liked that book. In fact, I think it's my favorite thriller that I've probably ever read because I know that I really enjoy his writing and his books, and then I've really liked his thrillers in the past. I'm excited to read The Maidens, and I've heard amazing things about it this year. The next one I am so excited about, and you guys know that I'm so excited about it, and that is because it is Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. I cannot wait for this book to come out. It comes out in late January and I'm going to be reading it pretty much immediately. I cannot wait to jump into it. This is the third book in the Fourth Wing series, and the end of Iron Flame was left on such an edge. Like, I need to know what happens like right now. I've already pre-ordered this book and it is like ready to go. Like, I am so ready for it. It's coming real soon. Then the next book is also a continuation of a series that I absolutely love. It's one of my favorites, and that is The Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. This is another prequel in the Hunger Games series. Timeline-wise, it will be in between The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and the Hunger Games. And this book is about Haymitch and his experience in the Hunger Games. I am so excited, and I have full trust that Suzanne Collins is going to do it justice. I know that she's capable of it, and she knows how beloved Haymitch is in the Hunger Games world. I'm not exactly sure when this one comes out. It doesn't matter because I am going to be here for it. I'm going to go out and buy it immediately. Like, I am ready to go for this book. Onyx Storm and Sunrise on the Reaping are two of my most anticipated releases of next year, if not my most anticipated reads of next year. Like, I'm so excited about them. Then we have a book that I tried to get to this year. I just didn't have quite enough time to make it happen. That is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I've heard amazing things about Kristen Hanna and her writing, and I've heard that this is probably the best book to start with because it really showcases her writing in a really good way. Though Firefly Lane, I know, also has like this really big fan following as well. And as per usual in Kristen Hanna's writing, it is about women who do really hard things or really strong women. And this particular book is about a woman who becomes a nurse in World War II. She's not allowed to join the military as a soldier, but she wants to help the war effort in some way. And so she becomes a nurse during the war, and it kind of covers what she sees when she's on the front lines being a nurse and the toll that it has on her. And I think it also follows her sister, who does not join the army. She stays in Paris, but then Paris is under Nazi rule, and her experience with that as well. So this is a historical fiction book. It is not based on true stories, but from what I understand, Kristen Hanna does her research very thoroughly so that these situations are either situations that did happen to people or situations that were very probable to happen. Yeah, there's that one. And then the last book on my list, number 25, is a book that is kind of not like the rest. Actually, it's definitely not like the rest. I don't know why this book intrigued me so much, but I have been eyeing up this book for months now, and I decided to bite the bullet and get it. And that book is a book that you've probably never heard of, and that is Butter by Asako Yagasuki. I think is how you pronounce her name, and is translated by Polly Barton. This book, first of all, look at the cover. Is this cover not just like one of the best things you've ever seen? It's a stick of butter, a cow, and then bloody fingerprints. And this book just sounds like so interesting. I've never heard a premise like this in a book, and that is like the reason why I got it. I heard the summary like months ago, and I have not been able to stop thinking about the fact that that just sounds so cool. And so I will read it for you. There are two things that I simply cannot tolerate: feminists and margarine. Gourmet cook Mankino Kaji sits in the Tokyo detention house, convicted of serial murders of lovely businessmen whom she is said to have seduced by her delicious home cooking. The cause has captured the nation's imagination, but Kaji refuses to speak with the press, entertaining no visitors. That is, until journalist Rika writes a letter asking for her recipe for beef stew, and Kaji can't resist writing back. Rika is the only woman in her news office, works late each night, and rarely cooks more than ramen. As the visits unfold between her and the steely Kaji, they are closer to a masterclass in food than journalistic research. Rika hopes that this gastronomic exchange will help her soften Kaji, but it seems that Rika might be the one that's changing. Do she and Kaji have more in common than she once thought? Inspired by the real case of a convicted con woman and serial killer, the Kankatsu Killer, Asako Yakasuhi's Butter, is a vivid, unsettling explanation of misogyny, obsession, romance, and the transgressive pleasures of food in Japan. That sounds so good, and I cannot wait to read it. It's very much outside my comfort zone. I don't read a whole bunch of translated literature, but who knows? This may be the start of something completely new. I may end up just absolutely loving this and just like jumping into Japanese translated fiction. But that is the last book on my 25 books that I want to read in 2025. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end and listening to me yap on about all the books that I want to read next year. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Please comment down below if you are interested in reading any of these books, and also any books that you have on your books that you want to read in 2025. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.